I was born in Michigan, just north of Detroit, about 30 miles. And then the time came to graduate. Where do you do next? Well, military was an option, and I chose the Air Force because they said it was a good Boy Scout troop to go to. Good training, good schools, good assignments. Don't have any regrets.
The Cold War.
Spent 8 years in the United States Air Force with a title as radar operator. And that means I sat behind a radar scope and looks out a couple hundred miles to see if any aircraft are in the air. Plotted then on a great big plexiglass board for basically everybody in the room to see. There's 100 plus radar sites in the 50s and 60s and operating during the Cold War. And radar sites gave the military anywhere between 20 minutes and as much as an hour warning that an imminent strike might be forthcoming. And of course, if we saw enemy aircraft, we'd have to identify them, make sure that they really were. If they were deemed a threat to our borders, we would, if you will, press the button and scramble 2 or 3 jet fighters from the closest Air Force base. And we had about 2 to 4 minutes to make a button-pushing decision that we should scramble fighters or not. For a radar site, you're always semi-remote. You're out in the middle of nowhere. North Dakota, in some places, is nowhere. Montana. I was in Minnesota, North Dakota, and Montana. Spent a year in the center part of Southeast Asia in Thailand. Came back from there to North Bend, Oregon, where we had a radar site, and that protected our Pacific coast for the state of Oregon. We had a pretty good idea of what was in the air at all times. Radar sites have the big white bubbles, and inside those bubbles are the radar antennas that spin on an axis and send out the frequency waves into space, and then we bounce them back off an aircraft and we know that it's out there. And radar sites are normally the highest spot, generally speaking, in the area. I think the first mission that we learned when we went to school was remember Pearl Harbor. We had a radar set there. It was brand spanking new. Had they had the knowledge, even a portion of the knowledge that we had in the early 50s, we would have not been attacked at Pearl Harbor. That's what kept us awake 24/7. That's why we got up. That's why we went to work. They never let destruction of our country occur. One time at North Bend, I was on scope duty and an aircraft kind of south of me, I called in the coordinates. I waited the 2 minutes and I called in the next coordinates. Standard aircraft would have maybe gone 4 inches. This aircraft went 14 inches. I immediately thought there was something wrong with my scope. The Dias chief looked over and he said, "No, just do your job, son. Call them like you see them." Only one person on the Dias knew what that aircraft was, and that was an SR-71. 20 minutes later, we found out that it had gone all the way up to Fairbanks, turned around and come back and was flying back down to Southern California. That thing was going about 2,100 miles an hour. Unbelievable in that day. I look back on my military career as an open opportunity to serve our country. It prepared me for maturity, how you had to live. You just had to put your mind up that you're gonna make it. The military career might not be for everybody, but it was okay for me.